Chima was raised in the Midlands of the UK, the son of immigrants. His devout Christian parents, unable to secure jobs in their fields despite their degrees from their home country, took on roles that were far from what they had hoped for. His father worked as a security guard, and his mother was a housekeeper. Though their financial means were limited, they provided Chima with a comfortable life, ensuring his needs were always met. Their home was filled with love and faith, and they taught Chima to be grateful for what he had, regardless of its abundance. Years later, having excelled in his studies, Chima earned a degree in accounting. Struggling to find job opportunities in his hometown, where options were limited, he widened his search and explored positions in other cities. His perseverance paid off when he secured a junior accountant role in London. Viewing it as a gateway to a brighter future, Chima eagerly accepted the offer, relocated, and started his new role with renewed optimism. In his new city, Chima met Anya, who had moved from Romania to the UK to support her family back home. Their bond quickly deepened after they first met at a local cafe. A shared devotion to Jesus and their experiences as immigrants sparked their initial conversation and connection. As they spent more time together, their bond grew stronger, revealing shared values and dreams. They enjoyed long walks through the city's parks, intimate dinners, and deep conversations that stretched late into the night. Chima soon discovered that Anya was deeply involved in her church, a place that was central to her life and community. Intrigued by her passion, he began attending services with her, finding a sense of belonging and spiritual connection in the welcoming congregation. The church became a significant part of their relationship, a place where their love for each other was nurtured and celebrated. Their journey together was marked by moments of adventure and deep comfort, each experience solidifying their commitment to one another. It was within the warm, supportive environment of Anya's church that Chima and Anya chose to exchange their vows, making their marriage a testament to both their love and the faith that had brought them together. Chima found a new sense of fulfillment in attending Anya's church. The teachings there were a significant departure from those of his previous congregation, inspiring him to aim higher in life and pursue greater financial success. This fresh perspective was invigorating, offering a contrast to the focus he had grown up with, which emphasized seeking God's kingdom above everything else. At Anya's church, however, the teaching centered on two key principles. The first was that if you earnestly seek guidance, answers, or opportunities from God, you will receive whatever you ask for. Secondly, they emphasized that generosity to God, particularly through giving freely and abundantly to the church, will certainly lead to even greater rewards. In essence, unanswered prayers were a sign of insufficient faith. This also implied that the way you give to the church will reflect what you receive in return. Despite having a stable job, a fulfilling marriage, and contributing generously to the church through tithes and occasional offerings as his means allowed, Chima couldn't shake the sense that something was missing from his life. His financial situation prevented him from contributing as much as he felt was expected by the church, and despite his deep faith in Jesus Christ, the unanswered prayers led him to believe that he must be falling short in some way. A few years after their wedding, Anya shared the news of her pregnancy, and Chima's heart overflowed with joy at the thought of becoming a father. It was a dream come true, and the prospect of starting a family with Anya filled him with immense happiness. However, this joy was quickly overshadowed by a deep anxiety about their financial situation. Chima couldn't shake the worry that their modest income might fall short in providing for their child's needs. The weight of responsibility and the desire to offer a secure and comfortable life for their baby became a constant source of stress. His fears intensified when the company he worked for encountered severe economic difficulties. Management announced that, in order to stabilize finances, several employees would be laid off. This news was already unsettling, but the situation worsened when they issued a warning that if the financial outlook did not improve by the end of the year, further layoffs could be necessary. The reality of some employees being let go combined with the looming threat of additional cuts, exacerbated Chima's anxiety about providing for his growing family. The once reassuring stability of his employment now seemed precarious, heightening his stress and feeding into his feelings of inadequacy. The pressure to meet the expectations set by the teachings at their church only intensified his fears. The church's messages about abundance and the idea that God rewards faithfulness with material wealth made Chima feel as though he was failing if he couldn't achieve the same level of financial success. This inner conflict reached a peak when Chima decided to seek a private meeting with the pastor for prayer and guidance. He shared his struggles, including his financial anxiety and the fear of potential job loss. During the meeting, the pastor suggested that Chima's difficulties might be due to not sowing enough seed, meaning he hadn't been contributing sufficiently to the church's offerings. He quoted Luke chapter 6, verse 38. "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." The pastor implied that his financial struggles were a result of inadequate monetary investments in the church, which only deepened Chima's sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. The expectation that more significant contributions could unlock divine favor and financial breakthrough only added to Chima's anxiety, making him feel both spiritually and financially unworthy. As his discontent grew, Chima began to question his parents' attitude toward their modest life. He criticized them for always being happy and grateful, despite what he now perceived as a lack of prosperity. One day, during a visit to his parents' home, Chima's frustration surfaced as he asked, "How can you be content with so little? Don't you see that something is missing?" His parents listened patiently to Chima's concerns. They knew their son's distress and sought to help him understand the deeper truths of faith and wealth. They began a heartfelt conversation to try changing Chima's perspective. "Chima," his father said gently, "do you remember the story in Matthew 14:13-21, where Jesus fed 5,000 people with just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish? This story teaches us that when we trust in Him, we will always have what we need. Despite what you may think, we have never lacked anything. Growing up, you always had enough to eat. We were able to provide you with a good education, and we managed to pay all our bills. Those who put their trust in God will never be put to shame." His mother then joined the conversation, quoting Matthew chapter 6, verses 31-34. "So do not worry, saying, 'What shall we eat?' or 'What shall we drink?' or 'What shall we wear?' For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Chima's father concluded, "We trust that God knows exactly what we need and provides for us accordingly. This assurance is the reason we remain content and steadfast in our praise for the Lord. Our faith is not in the abundance of material things, but in His provision." Chima listened attentively, but struggled to reconcile the new insights with the teachings he had received at his new church. He couldn't shake the conviction that his pastor's messages were right, that his financial struggles were due to insufficient offerings and tithing. In a desperate attempt to turn things around, Chima, after praying with his wife for guidance, decided to donate all their savings to the church. Savings which they had carefully set aside for the arrival of their baby girl. A gift offering given in hope that it would bring about a positive change in their circumstances. Tragically, the following week, just as his wife gave birth to their daughter, Naomi, Chima was laid off from his job. His worst fears had materialized. Overwhelmed by depression and paralyzed by the fear of being unable to support his family, Chima felt himself sinking into a deep, consuming despair. Chima and his family were compelled to move in with his parents, who welcomed them with open arms and offered unwavering support during this difficult period. Chima's parents enveloped them in love and compassion, helping them navigate through the challenges and work towards rebuilding their stability. Determined to ease the financial burden on his parents, Chima tirelessly sent out his CV and scoured job listings. But despite his efforts, a year passed with no success. With 5 people, including a toddler, now living under one roof, the strain on his parents' finances became increasingly severe. The additional expenses and the burden of supporting a larger household began to take a toll. After a year, Chima's parents saw their financial reserves dwindle, and the looming threat of being unable to cover the rent for the upcoming month compounded their anxiety and stress. The landlord's ultimatum was clear and unforgiving. Chima and his family had just 1 month to come up with the rent or face eviction. The weight of the impending crisis was crushing. Devastated and feeling the walls close in, Chima's parents turned to Jesus for solace. They decided to fast and pray, pouring every ounce of hope into their plea for a miracle. In a twist of fate, just 2 days before the eviction deadline, Chima received an unexpected call from an international company that had interviewed him weeks earlier. The company expressed strong interest in his profile and offered him the position of an accountant. In a moment of sheer desperation and with the eviction looming over them, Chima asked his new employers for an advance on his salary to cover the urgent rent payment. To his relief, they agreed. With this advance, Chima was able to settle the rent and stave off the eviction. It was a miracle. The new job not only provided him with the means to support his parents and his family, but also offered a glimmer of stability in a time of intense struggle. The financial strain eventually eased, and the heavy cloud of anxiety began to lift, though the experience had left deep marks on Chima's soul. Through it all, however, Chima and his family never lacked food, water, or a place to lay their heads at night. God provided for their needs. One Sunday, while at his parents' church, the pastor preached on 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 1-3. These Bible verses warns about false teachers who will secretly introduce destructive heresies, leading many astray with their deceptive doctrines. Apostle Peter described these individuals as greedy and manipulative, exploiting others for their own gain. The pastor further explained, drawing from this Bible verse, that beneath the alluring facade of these false teachers is a profound greed and a flagrant disregard for the truth. He emphasized the critical need for believers to stay vigilant and discerning, encouraging them to protect themselves from being led astray by such corrupt influences. The sermon resonated deeply with Chima and Anya, prompting them to make the decision to leave Anya's church. Years later, Chima, now seasoned and accomplished in his field, set his sights on advancing his career. He pursued further education and earned his designation as a chartered accountant, which opened doors to new opportunities. Armed with this advanced qualification, he secured a position at a prestigious multinational company with a 6-figure salary. His financial success was so substantial that he was able to provide for his parents' retirement comfortably. Chima purchased a beautiful home for them back in their home country and ensured they wanted for nothing. His parents were overjoyed and deeply proud of his achievements, seeing in his success a fulfillment of their hopes and dreams for him. Their gratitude and pride were boundless, as Chima's prosperity had not only transformed his own life, but also provided them with the comfort and security they had long deserved. One evening, as they gathered around the dinner table, Chima's parents gently reminded him of the meaningful conversation they had years earlier about God's provision and the importance of contentment. His mother explained that during their particularly challenging times, such as when their financial reserves were depleted and they faced the threat of losing their home, God's presence provided the strength and support they needed, ensuring they were never alone or abandoned. She reminded him that despite the anxiety and stress they experienced during those difficult moments, God had never forsaken them. With a warm smile, she quoted Isaiah 41:10 to affirm her message. "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." His father added softly, "It's important to understand that God isn't against wealth. However, as Mark 10:25 says, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God." This doesn't mean wealth is evil, but it can become a barrier if it distracts us from our relationship with God and turns into an idol, placing our trust in it rather than in Him. "Chima," his dad said gently, "with your renewed status and the blessings you have received, it's now your responsibility to be a blessing to others." His mother continued thoughtfully, "Furthermore, how can we truly love God if we have wealth, but ignore the suffering of those around us?" This reflects 1 John chapter 4, verse 20. Your prosperity should be a means to extend kindness and support to those in need, embodying the love and compassion that God calls us to. Chima's perspective shifted profoundly. He began to appreciate his life's blessings more deeply and recognized that his earlier dissatisfaction was rooted in a misunderstanding of true prosperity. Embracing a life of gratitude, he found peace in God's perfect provision and realized that God's abundant blessings were intended not just for his own benefit, but also to serve and uplift others. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest content.